What's up, guys? Boston Lamb here to talk about the recent comments that former U.S. soccer legend Alexi Lalas made over the weekend.
Yeah, Lalas is actually my guy, too. Like, I enjoy his analysis, like, even through World Cup or pretty much anything he does on Fox. I listen to it a lot, despite a lot of people criticizing him.
Yeah, and he pretty much just ripped the U.S. men's national team after the two dreadful performances in World Cup qualifier. And here, let's give you guys a listen as to what it is Alexi Lalas had to say.
Tim Howard. Tim, the Belgium game ended 3 years ago. We need you to save the ball now. Jeff Cameron, clean it up or let's get someone who will. Clint Dempsey, yeah, you're a national team legend. Now we need you to be a national team leader. Michael Bradley, the U.S. does not need you to be zen. The U.S. needs you to play better. Josie Altidore, is this really as good as it gets? Because it's still not good enough. Bruce Arena. Bruce, Jurgen Klinsmann lost at home to Mexico. You lost at home to Costa Rica. This is now all on you, not Jurgen. Oh, and by the way, to all the guys that I didn't mention it because you don't even warrant to mention. That includes you too, Wonder Boy. So, what are you guys going to do? Are you going to continue to be a bunch of soft, underperforming, tattooed millionaires? You are a soccer generation that has been given everything. You are a soccer generation who is on the verge of squandering everything. So, now it's time to pay it back. Make us believe again. You don't owe it to yourselves. You owe it to us. And get off my lawn.
So, boss, any thoughts on what the legend had to say?
About damn time.
Yeah, you think so?
Yeah, man. That's, for the USA and the CONCACAF, that's their region for the World Cup qualifying, for them to be sitting outside a World Cup spot, like currently, if the draw ended today, that's embarrassing. Costa Rica's ahead of you, Mexico, not Honduras.
Panama.
Panama's holding the third spot. Look at the level of competition I'm naming.
Yeah.
Compared to World Cup competition.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, Bruce Arena actually came out and he said if we were going to play like this against the Germanys and Spains of the world in the World Cup, we'd get shellacked.
Yeah.
And they would. And I think my biggest takeaway from what he had to say is, like what you said, it's about time that someone comes out, especially a guy of his magnitude, a former legend, everybody respects him, and calls them out and puts them in their place. Like, look, dude, we're big Tim Howard guys, and he's always remembered for the Belgian performance because he stood on his head, a little hockey term, as they say. But like Alexi Lalas said, that was 3 years ago, and we need you to save goals now. And goalie is kind of their weakness right now because Guzan isn't doing much. The last two teams he's been on in the Premier League got relegated.
Right.
So what's that saying about you? And the third guy that they have in, he's very young. He played for the under-20 team. So it's like you need your goalie to be great. And also, there's no real leadership on this team. Bradley's kind of like, he's been there, done that, but at this point, he's kind of just stayed stagnant in his performance. And Dempsey's 35 years old, man. How much can he give you? I think for 25, 30 minutes a game, he's great if we bring him on as like a super sub. But after that, there's not much else going forward.
Yeah, he's just a legend at this point with, leadership. But it's not going to be on the field for the full 90 to, use that leadership. From the bench, sure, as like a player coach perspective, but that's not really helping the on-field performance. You have Pulisic, who that's your guy.
Yeah,
not arguably, he is the best player.
And he also got at him too. He called him Wonder Boy because he mentions Bradley, he mentions Dempsey, he mentions Altidore, he mentions Tim Howard, and he's like, look, everybody else that I don't mention, you guys aren't worthy of a mention, and that goes for you, Wonder Boy.
Right.
So it's like he's on the menu too, according to Alexi Lalas. And look, he didn't play that great the last two qualifiers, and I'm his number one fan. If you guys have listened in the past about everything on VM, anytime he comes up, that this is my guy. But, he was right. He didn't play that well.
As crazy as it is, you need a 20-year-old to be the key to your success.
18.
18, I'm sorry. 18. Yeah. At this point, that's what they're relying on pretty much. The older heads, the Josie Altidore, he calls him out, never really developed into much of anything. You don't have a true goal scorer. You tried Wondolowski, who lights up the MLS, but can't find it in international. Missed a big goal in that Belgium game that would have tied it. So it's like you got to rely on Pulisic going forward. He's your weapon. Everything's going to go through him.
And one of my biggest issues I have with the men's national team, and I was telling you this before we started recording, was there's no one on Team USA right now other than Pulisic that would be able to play on a team like Borussia Dortmund. Nobody on the national team is capable to play at that level. So Pulisic, when he comes to the national team, he's stepping tiers down in performance and level of player around him. And that's where you see the drop off. And look, this kid's 18 years old, and what Costa Rica was doing and what Honduras was doing was they were keen on him. 3-4 guys at a time checking him and hacking him, and it got under his skin and it showed. But there's also, you know, there's that drop off. Look, I think Jeff Cameron's solid. He's played over 100 caps over at Stoke City and in the English Premier League. Yep. Big accomplishment for an American. But it's like Bobby Wood was playing at a second tier team in Germany in the second division. Now he's up in the Bundesliga. And then you got Fabian Johnson. Outside of that, everybody else is in the MLS.
Yeah.
So it's that level of competition that he's playing with around him doesn't elevate, because if you watch him at Borussia Dortmund, he's playing with world-class players. You know, Royce, Aubameyang up top, who has been linked to Real Madrid. He's not playing with guys like that on the national team.
All national players, too, guys of that magnitude for their respective European countries.
And starters, too. This is like the cream of the crop. And Borussia Dortmund's a top 10, 15 team in the world.
Yeah.
So just a lot of pressure on Pulisic. But look, I also got to agree. I got to agree with Alexi Lalas. It was time that someone came out like that and kind of bashed him. And he brought up a good point about Bruce Arena when he said about how, you know, Jurgen Klinsmann got fired because he lost to Mexico.
Right,
he lost at home to Costa Rica. Now, look, Navas stood on his head in that game against Team USA. And this is the goalie that played for Real Madrid. He plays for Real Madrid, so like he stole that game for them. But this isn't the same Costa Rica team that went to the Final 8 at the last World Cup.
I think when you're in the position you are in the Hex, anyone and everyone should be called out, just the way Lalas did it. And I think when you bring back an old voice, granted, none of these players played for him, you know, during like the early 2000s when he had that Final 8 run with the
in 2002 Korea Japan World Cup.
Right, but that's back then. This is a new generation of talent. I think they need a new voice, like a refreshing voice. Bruce Arena's already been through the national team grind. He knows what it's like. I would have preferred the team went in a different direction after getting rid of Klinsmann. And Klinsmann did some good things. They just weren't coming to fruition. He was more about getting the dual citizens.
Yeah.
Still young, you know, but I thought he was doing good things. Obviously, you don't get your life as a national team coach as much. You know, it's only 6 years, which is about 2 tournaments. So it's a short lifespan, but to go from Klinsmann back to Arena, I think was a step back, personally. And I think it's showing in the play on the field. Now, I'm not saying he can go out there and play, but it's the coaching, you know, the tactics, all that stuff that comes to mind, I think is part of the reason why they're failing so far in the Hex.
Well, the next time we're going to see him in World Cup qualifying is October 6th down in Orlando.
And that's a short turnaround.
And that's also
only 4 or 5 weeks.
Yeah, and also that's against Panama. It's one of the teams that they're chasing. So it's going to be interesting. And that's the next time that we're going to see him. So hopefully they get it together, or else it's going to be a major setback for Team USA, for U.S. soccer going forward if they can't make this World Cup after all the success that they've had and building towards it. So, guys, I hope you enjoyed this, a little impromptu episode to comment on the comments Alexi Lalas made. You can find us at Veterans Minimum on Twitter. Subscribe to the Veterans Minimum YouTube channel if you haven't already, and give this a thumbs up. See you guys next week.